Welcome to the Law Firm Lab by MB Law Firm Consulting, the podcast where we explore how law firms grow smarter, scale sustainably, and lead with clarity. Each episode, we sit down with industry experts, firm leaders, and business minds to uncover practical strategies that help today's law firms operate at their best. Whether you're driving growth, shaping leadership, building culture, or pioneering innovation, get ready to uncover proven practices you can apply immediately in your firm. Let's get started.
So I'm so excited to be here with you today, Steve. My name is Margaret Burke, as Steve knows, as we know each other well. So today I'm joined by Steve Fretzin. He is a leading business development coach, author, and host of Be That Lawyer podcast. Steve has built a strong personal brand while helping thousands of lawyers grow their businesses strategically. He is the bridge between business development and branding, and he helps his clients show up as who they are authentically and help them understand that how they show up really does matter. So welcome, Steve.
Hey, thank you, Mark. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So we'll jump right in. So Steve, we love to start the show by asking for our guests to share with us the worst piece of branding advice you have ever received.
Well, the worst piece of branding advice I've ever received is no different than the worst piece of business development advice I've ever heard, which is you have to just get out there. That came from a series of managing partners that I interviewed prior to starting my podcast. Let's go back 10 years or more. And it's so vague and ridiculous, and no attorney's really going to be able to follow that and get any real value from the direction other than wasting time, money, and energy. So I think, we need to understand so many things before we actually get out there, whether it's developing a personal brand or business development as a lawyer or law firm, that, you'll end up just spinning your wheels if you don't have a little more meat on the bone when it comes to context of how to do things, why to do things, when to do things, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It is so true, and it is incredibly vague. And what do you do with that information? Like, what is the next step of just get out there?
Just bad decisions are going to happen after that, right?
Yeah, in a lot of wasted time and frustration. There really does need to be a plan. And we'll jump right into that because that's what you specialize in. So Steve, you have built a strong personal brand in the legal industry. When did you realize that branding and business development really do go hand in hand?
That's a great question. I focus so much of my energy and time on business development that I maybe had for a number of years ignored the branding element. But what I saw firsthand in not only my own business, but in helping attorneys around the world was if you're climbing two sides of a mountain, and one of them is business development and the other one is branding, personal branding, that at some point, if you stay consistent with both, they meet at the peak. And that's where all of that effort from business development, the relationship building, the client loyalty, all of the strategic partner relationships, all of that gets enhanced significantly when your LinkedIn profile is set up, when your website is set up, when you're out there producing content and demonstrating yourself as a thought leader by publishing and speaking and podcasting and doing various things, that it really supports the business development effort very, very well. And so I think lawyers that can get started on business development alone or branding alone, I'm happy for anyone that does either of those things. But if we're able to work together to get them done at the same time, I think they'll see exponential growth and advancement in how quickly they can achieve their goals of getting to bigger numbers, more control, more independence. And again, just being thought of when the matter needs a home, you want to be the one that's thought of for that matter or that client.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And it's interesting, as you were speaking, it dawned on me how branding and business development means different things to different people. And you touched on some branding. Can you share with the audience, when you say branding, what are you referring to?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different than marketing. Branding is how you're perceived in the marketplace. It's what are you putting out there to generate your authentic self, but also to demonstrate expertise in your space and thought leadership, and just being regularly viewed and seen by others that are in your circles, and so that your name is the one that gets passed around. And again, I don't know any lawyer that says, I just wish I was the best kept secret. We need
Right.
to make sure people know that even though we're under maybe the brand of another firm, that we have to develop our own, brands, and that might include specialization, differentiation, authenticity, and then how are you staying consistent with how you show up online and show up generally to make sure that people know you're the one that they should call when they have a specific problem.
Yeah, thank you. And interesting, like authenticity is so critical. And I think you actually I saw something recently on your LinkedIn about like being yourself and being authentic and how key that is. Can you share some practical ways that lawyers can really start building their brand, their visibility, and doing it in a way that's authentic and does not feel like they're trying to sell themselves?
It's really important for lawyers to know that I'm not out here to teach them to sell. I'm not out here to teach them to convince or to try to push a round peg through a square hole. A lot of what I'm teaching is sales free. That's my methodology, sales free selling, and also the title of my first book. And so it really is about having plans and systems and language that makes business development into something you can enjoy and something that makes it a win-win. So I'm walking a buyer through a buying decision. I'm not selling. I'm putting out my authentic self versus trying to sell my wares right online. And so, what I'm doing is essentially, we'll just start with the most simple form to answer your question, Margaret. Number one is, what does your LinkedIn profile look like? You have an opportunity to create a book cover in your LinkedIn profile. Is the book plain? Is the book bare? Is the book have a banner that's just that blue banner at the top? Does it have no picture? Does it have a bad title? Does it have anything interesting that would make me want to open up that book? And so we have to start at the very basics of getting a lawyer to agree that this book needs to have a killer, cover. And in order
Mm-hmm.
to do that, we have to spend some time thinking about who are you targeting, who is looking for you, what kind of matters you're running, what should you have on your cover that's going to attract the right people, not only for the right matters, but maybe even from a personality standpoint that will appreciate your brilliance. And so I think it starts with something as simple as spending some time and energy to create a great LinkedIn profile. It's become the most important online book cover, more so than even someone's website,
Mm-hmm.
profile. That's where people are going to see that you're who you say you are. Do you have all your contact information filled out, or is it hard to find you and hard to reach you? These are things that are going to limit the ability for someone to want to talk with you or make it easy for them to find you. Then the
Yeah.
next step is something simple like, hey, can we just get you posting something once a week? So the argument might be, Margaret, that everybody's posting and it's just a field of junk that I'm trying to now insert myself into. And I would say, while that might be true, there's a lot of junk out there and a lot of people selling and a lot of advertisements. You're either in the game or you're on the sidelines. So you have to decide
Mm-hmm.
as an individual who's looking to brand themselves, are you willing to play ball or not? And I think there's something about educating people in your space. There's something about showing up and being visible and being memorable. Just over the weekend, for example, I posted something that was a little controversial, but what ended up happening is it went totally viral, and I think I'm upwards of like 50,000 impressions on this one post.
Wow.
And the post was a little bit of clickbait, but not anything terrible. It was an
Mm-hmm.
image of a bill. Someone paid a bill from their dinner, and instead of giving a tip, it said "do better." Did you see that one?
I did, and it
Maybe.
stuck with me. I
Anyway,
would hate to get
and then
that.
people commented on it, and my point was not about that you shouldn't tip, but although people took it that way, my point
Right.
was that we all need to figure out how to do better in whatever
Yeah.
way, whether you're a server at a restaurant or a lawyer or a coach, we all have to continually strive to be better. And that was the point. So some people got it and some people didn't. But the point is, I put something out there that got people thinking about me, talking about me, and most importantly, engaging in something interesting that I put out there that also demonstrated me as a thought leader, because I was explaining that the critical thing that we all need to do is to do better.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great example, by the way. And I did see that post and I had my reaction. Well, maybe because I know you, I knew that it wasn't don't tip. Um,
Right.
it
Of course, it's not don't tip,
because
right?
I
I mean,
know
that I
you,
like to
but
over
maybe
tip.
some of
I like to be
yeah,
generous to people, but but it was to get people talking, and it did.
yeah. But my takeaway was do better. Like it's so true. Like we all need to always strive to do better. And I thought it was an excellent post. And it made me think about our work with clients and how we can always do better. And lawyers have the same situation. How can they do better with their clients? So you talk a lot about being top of mind. I think social media actually very much plays into that. Can you share strategies or habits that you recommend to your clients and to all our listeners to help them remain visible and relevant?
Well, as I mentioned, I think getting something going like a LinkedIn, if you know that your clients are on TikTok, Instagram, Meta, that you create content that's useful. There's a little bit of salesmanship and marketing that can occur in my posting. Just as an example, I might teach something or provide an article or provide some value educationally, but then at the end I might say, look, if you're feeling like you as a lawyer aren't hitting the numbers you want to hit, you had a rough 2025, you want a better 2026, here's my email. I'm happy to meet with you and evaluate where you are and what you want to do. There's a little bit of that, but I think generally what we're trying to accomplish is we're trying to be seen, to be visible, to show our
Mhm.
authentic self. And then, as I mentioned, to stay consistent. It's once a week, to post once a week. Um, you could potentially ask ChatGPT or just think up on your own, what are the top 10 challenges that people are having that I solve, right? So let's say, for example, it's lawyers and I want to put out 10 posts over the next 10 weeks. I could sit down and create that in about 30 minutes because I know like one thing is time management. So I could write a
Mhm.
post about why lawyers struggle with time management. And here's a tip that I recommend to improve time management. They don't have a plan for how they're going to approach developing business in 2026. Well, here's an idea of how to do that. And by the way, it links to an article that I've written that takes them to Above the Law or the Chicago Daily Law Bulletin or Attorney at Work, where I've written. So, I'm adding value, but I'm also able to take, the top 10 things that I'm seeing and create a 10-week, once a week post based on some very simple ideas of like, what are the top 10 things that I see and hear from attorneys on a regular basis. So, you're an estate planning attorney. You could do the same thing. Here are the top 10 things people don't know about why it's important to have an estate plan, but should know. And then you lay out the 10 things, and that's a 10-week post. And once you get consistent over 10 weeks, or you get consistent once a week, um, then maybe you decide, you know what, I just set up 10 weeks. And as the day hits me, something pops into my head that I found really interesting, or a cute picture, or something that I can relate back to estate planning or intellectual property or lawyer coaching, whatever it is. And I can post that as well. So now I've got a regular weekly post. And then on top of that, I've got a daily post that just hit me the right way at the right time because I'm looking for it and I'm listening for it. I'm waiting for it. I'm going to give you one more example. I'm walking home with my wife from dinner the other night and I see a truck parked in a lot and I took a picture of it because it was custom cocktail ice. So think about this. There's ice companies all over the world, people making
Mhm.
ice. This particular company, all they do is make really interestingly shaped ice cubes and then sell that to the restaurants that are the high end restaurants as a kind of a kitschy thing to
Mhm.
do or for a wedding or whatever they might do. But I thought that's a great example of specialization. How far
Mhm.
can you niche down to find yourself where you're not competing with everybody else? Everybody knows you for one thing and one thing really well. And that was a post I did on the fly the next day. And it again got a lot of attention because it was interesting and topical and it was sort of off the cuff, but we just
Right.
have to be thinking about it and keeping it top of mind to stay consistent.
Yeah, that was a great example. And I think that those are the posts that people really do like. Little off the cuff, as you noted, interesting. Um, And you just mentioned something that I've seen you write about, and I've actually heard you speak about this, is maybe one of the number one challenges, one of the top five, I would say, is the time management. Would you mind sharing with the audience like one or two tips that they can think about as they're planning to move forward with their business development activities?
100%. And I just want to sort of clarify something. We have, you and I and everyone listening has a process or a system for how we dry off after a shower, right? Top down, bottom up. I don't know your system. I know mine's top down. I go with gravity on it, right? And yet we don't, as professionals, most professionals don't have a system or a process for how they manage or even better master their time. They haven't read a book. They haven't taken advice. They haven't figured things out to be as efficient with their time as possible. So every day's a fire drill. You're 500 emails behind every day. You're going to sleep at night knowing that you've got things weighing on your mind for the next day that weren't done today that should have been. And it goes on, and then you're burned out. The battery is drained. So why is that? Well, for most people, and attorneys are certainly at risk for this as much as anybody, is they haven't come up with a system for how to do it. So I'm a feather on the wind. That's just how I'm built behaviorally and naturally.
Mm-hmm.
It took me really reading and implementing a book, Getting Things Done by David Allen being the one. And there's a number of different
Mm-hmm.
great books on how to be better with your time. This was one that really struck me the right way. And I don't follow it to the letter, but I follow it so clearly that not only am I maybe the most organized person that I know, but I teach my lawyers how to be as organized as they can be. Because lawyers
Mm-hmm.
and professionals in general, they can't get to everything if they don't have a system for all of the stuff that comes into our head of how we quickly, within a second, a millisecond, manage it and make ourselves available to drop it or delegate it or defer it or do it later, whatever it might be. So that's one thing, is I think you have to become a student of the game of time mastery. And that's going to be
Mm-hmm.
super helpful in the long-term success of anyone's career. How are you getting the most out of the time each day with prioritization? Now, one other thing that we can do to help, and this gets to the more practical aspect, is how many people listening right now have tracked their day to truly understand and identify how effective or efficient they were in that day. So if you start at 6 a.m. and you end at 6 a.m. and you track what you actually do all day, my curiosity would be that, are there a few hours in there that are really not very efficient, right? You're doom scrolling on social media, or you find yourself doing low level, associate level,
Mm-hmm.
paralegal level work, right? That you just didn't want to bother anybody with, or it's just easier to do it myself. I've had lawyers that I've done this with. One of them was doing 2 hours of he's an estate planner, 2 hours of photocopying a day. Just
Wow.
throughout the day, you got to create the thing, and then you've got to print it out, right? And he was printing out, he's at the printer, he's back at his desk at the printer. He thought that was his job. 2 hours a day. 2 hours a day.
Insane.
If you do that over the course of a week, that's an extra week a month. You would have a 5-week month if you get those 2 hours a day back. I
Yeah.
delegate to my assistant, Ian, 40 hours a week of work that I should not and do not do. 40 hours a
Mm-hmm.
week that I would have to do without him. Okay. And I'm not someone that has that capacity. So half of it wouldn't get done. And I would be stressed out working way more than I should. We have to understand what we're doing and what our best use of our time is, and what do we enjoy. These are all things that are going to make us happier and allow us to really focus on the high level work that we should be doing. So there's the hits keep coming, but from a
Mm-hmm.
time perspective, since we're talking about time management, I'll stick with be a student of the game and track your day to see where it's being hijacked.
Mm-hmm. That's a great tip. And because, the folks that you work with and that we work with are attorneys, a lot of them are used to tracking time, but don't always track that non billable time. And it's
Yeah.
amazing if someone opens up a few matters private and track their time, what they'll learn. And you mentioned energy, Steve, and it's true. It's amazing how something may seem like it takes a long time. But if you track your time, if it seems like a long time and it isn't, it's usually because it's something you don't like doing. So it drains you. Um, and having a system is key, actually. And there's many different ways that attorneys can develop business and build a brand. And Steve, could you share, it goes back to being authentic. It goes back to having a plan. And, what recommendations do you have for the attorneys you work with that have very different personalities? Some of them love to go out to dinner and shake hands, and others do not want to really talk to people other than their family and clients. What advice do you give to people?
Yeah, I mean, I have the luxury of working with attorneys around the world from different cultures and different backgrounds, left, right, religion, color, race, everything, different practice areas, all over the place, introvert, extrovert. So I have to be very nimble with how I teach processes, planning processes, and performance. And I understand when I'm dealing with someone that's different than myself, that I
Mhm.
have to adapt and I have to approach them differently. And so, for example, if I have a client just like me, we can communicate in a very traditional way that I would communicate like I am right now. If I have somebody who I know is very different, like let's say an intellectual property attorney, engineer, highly introverted, well, I may have to change my speech pattern. I may have to slow things down and get into details. I may have to ask them open-ended questions to make sure that they're giving me, thorough answers. I may have to teach them business development in a way where I'm not putting them in a 100-person room with everybody drinking. It might be that they're much better in a one-on-one capacity or in small groups. So we have to
Mhm.
really think about not only who we want to meet and what kind of plan we need to create, but what's the personality and the behavior style of the individual, and really think about like what are the main strategies that individual. And by the way, podcasting is a great example. I have a number of clients that I would never in a million years say you need to be a podcaster, because they're so thoughtful in the way that they speak and the way that they approach language and communication that this conversation would never happen. I mean, we'd get one thing done in 20 minutes because that's just how they're built. So,
Mhm.
writing or communicating with email or having, they're very good in small groups or in one-on-one coffees. That's where those folks are going to thrive. And so we have to look at everybody individually to understand where they're going to be most successful.
Right. Great advice. And it goes back to being authentic with you gave yourself as an example. If you're speaking with someone and you need to change your tone or the speed of your conversation, you're being authentic, Steve, but you're also tailoring it for the best results. And I do think that in business development, it's important for people to understand you're still authentic, even though you're molding yourself so that your audience can better understand you.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
Margaret, the saying used to be treat people the way they want to be treated, right? Or treat people the way
yeah,
we want to be treated. That's what you and I grew up on, right? And now
pretty
it's
much.
it's treat people the way they want to be treated.
Yeah.
The way that a millennial or Gen Z wants to be treated may be very different than a Gen X or a baby boom. So, we've got all these different factors going into how we communicate, and we are being authentic, but we're also understanding that we can be authentic by communicating with people in a style and an approach that's going to more align with their values and the way that they're comfortable. And the more comfortable we can make people, the better we can build trust and build belief and build an understanding that we can work well together. And I don't think people put enough time and energy and thought into the way that they communicate to be their authentic selves, but also to make sure that they're connecting with other people, where they're kind of, putting different levels together on the same level.
Yeah, it's so true. And I'm assuming you probably speak to your clients this way and you explain these concepts and things to consider. So I know we're getting towards the end of our time together, and I really just have a question for you. For our listeners, if they want to start with two, I'm going to say two, not one, two things to get started. They haven't embarked on business development or they've tried and they stopped. What are the two pieces of advice that you have for our audience to get going?
They're a little bit broad. I'm not going to say just get out there because that's where we started, and I would never do that. But I would suggest that you consider your mindset, consider your attitude about business development. Look, I know you didn't become a lawyer to go out and sell legal services. It's probably the furthest thing from your mind. You did it because it's a noble profession and because you want to help people. And you know that it's a great, the law is one of the most sacred things we have in this world. And you're a part of that. And congratulations. All right. Unfortunately, the reality of the business of law is that it's a business and that there are rainmakers and people that bring in their own clients and control their destinies and have freedom and independence. And especially with AI and some of the things coming up the pike, there's going to be some turnover. There's going to be some things going on with the billable hour and with the amount of lawyers it takes to staff a case and a thing. We need to start getting prepared for that. So number one is shift your mind that this is not an evil or bad thing. It's really about how we're helping others. And by the way, helping more people, because the better you are at business development, the more people you can actually touch and get and help in a professional way. The second part aligns with it well, and something I said earlier, which is be a student of the game. I've got 5 books out there. I'm not saying you have to buy my books, although you certainly can. They're all on Amazon if you type my name in Amazon. But buy books, listen to podcasts like this one and my Be That Lawyer podcast, Future Rainmakers podcast. Watch videos. I mean, become a student of the game and start recognizing there's a lot to learn. This is an entirely different skill set than anything you may have had to learn in the past, but it's an important one for your career. So I would say those are the 2 things I would leave everybody with today.
That's great. Thank you so much, Steve. So my last final question is, could you please share with me and our audience, what is the best piece of advice you have received regarding business development?
I would say the best piece of advice that I've ever received with business development is it doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice. I don't think that random acts of marketing and random acts of business development are going to get you where you want to go. I know lawyers that spend 200, 300, 400 hours a year as professional meters and as professional business developers getting nothing out of it, right? And that's not really the place. So the best advice I had was that you need to plan and you need to have processes in place and you need to improve performance. I mean, that's if you want to be a great musician, a great chef, a great anything, and you don't have a plan and you don't have processes to follow and ways to improve performance, I think you're going to end up not getting where you want to go as quickly as you can get there. And that's what we all want to do is get to the end zone, the end line, right, with the least amount of effort and time possible. But you can't do that without educating yourself on best practices.
Yeah, thank you. That was really motivating. And I love the examples. You don't know any athletes or musicians who did not work really hard to be where they are at this time. So thank you so much.
Thank
Steve,
you.
Really so happy that you joined us today. Really appreciate your insight, your thoughts. I love that you were able to share some things that people can actually action. So for our listeners, if our listeners would like to reach out to you, you mentioned a few resources. We know Fretzin.com. You also have your podcast, Be That Lawyer. Steve, any other resources that people have so they can touch base with you after listening to our show today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Again, I've got 5 books on Amazon. The most recent one over my shoulder is 101 Top Rainmaker Secrets to Growing a Successful Law Practice. It's what do you want to learn from 101 of the top rainmakers from around the world? It's in the book. And it's a bestseller on Amazon. I love when people buy it and read it and tell me how much they got out of it. Every chapter's got 3 or 4 good takeaways. And you can always email me if anybody wants to talk with me directly about their own situation and they got passed over on equity partner again, or they want to go out on their own or move laterally, or there's some transition and they want to email me at steve@fretzin.com. I am very easy to talk to and open to saying, yeah, let's meet up and let's figure out a way through. Or if you need other resources, I love to get emails that say, hey, I need someone for operations. Well, that's going to Margaret. I need someone for finance. It's going here, there. And I'm very blessed that I have a very large network. So I'm able to send good people to other good people as often as I can.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Steve. And thank you to our listeners for listening to the Law Firm Lab, where we explore how firms can grow smarter, scale sustainably, and lead with clarity. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.